Today I'm going to show you where you may be going wrong with brush-on silicone to make molds with. It is such a simple silicone to use. I use the J. Diction brush-on silicone. It is cured within 10 to 15 minutes and it has given me perfect results every time. I've made loads of molds with it. Now you can cast anything really that you want to within reason of size. I'm going to cast these. I brought a picture on my other channel. You can see what I did with the picture and it came with these. I've cleaned them all up and these are actually really detailed. There are some imperfections in this already and they will definitely show when I finish the mold. I'm also going to cast this little dragon as well because of how much detail there is in that. So I'm going to show you that because it really is detailed. The other thing is you do need to brush it on. It is called a brush on for a reason. So you do need to brush it on. It does come with these silicone brushes and they work really well. You can clean them very easily and I'm going to show you that as I go on. This is without a doubt my favorite method of making molds. It is so much quicker, saves you money because you're not using a lot of silicone, and also it is really easy. Now before I get started, I want two of these to be shiny when they're finished because at the moment they're matte. So what I'm going to do is I've got some crystal clear varnish here and I'm going to give them a quick spray with the crystal clear varnish to give them a shiny finish. It won't take long to dry and only give them very light coating. You don't need to overcoat them too much. You don't want a really thick coat on them, but it will give you a shiny finish because if you have a shiny blank, and these are called blanks, if you have a shiny blank, then you'll get a shiny mold. If you have a matte blank, you'll get a matte mold. Always work in a well-ventilated area. And always make sure you wear a mask as well when you're spraying anything. So all I'm going to do is a quick spray like this over them. Let that dry and then I will spray them a second time. You don't want too much spray on it because the last thing you want to do is take away all the detail. So there we go. They've got a nice shine to them, these two, as opposed to these two, which are matte. And you'll really see the difference when these come out of the molds. What I would say is, when you've varnished it, let it cure or dry for 24 hours prior to molding it. That way it's going to stay on and it's not going to pull off when you release your silicone. So I'm going to do these three first while my other ones are drying, and I'll do these on camera and then I'll do the other ones and then I'll demold them all together and show you the difference. Because these are quite light and flat, I'm going to put some double-sided tape onto the back of this just to hold it in place while I'm doing this. I'll just help it to grip a little bit. I'm working on acetate. Please always work on something like acetate or work on a piece of plastic. Don't work on silicone matte and please don't work on paper or cardboard because it is going to stick like nobody's business if you work on things like that. So I've got them on there nice and tight. What I'm now going to do is put my PPE on. Now you can do larger molds because in the previous video I did a much larger mold than this one. It was about that tall. So you don't have to worry about them being small molds at all. But I just want to show you something that's got quite a lot of detail in it. Now we need to mix this up. I'm going to mix it up in a little pot like that. Once it's cured, it will just pull out. And also you mix it by weight, not volume. And you don't need to mix up much because you want to do this in more than one coat. Now last time I did it in 3 coats and it gave a really nice, firm, secure mold. You can actually do it in 2 coats, but I'm again going to do this in 3 coats. But you need to make sure that your first coat is applied like this. Now I'm going to mix up 30 grams in total. So it's 15 grams of part A and 15 grams of part B. Now this is where you need to start working really quickly because this stuff gets thick and dries very quickly. It says to mix for up to 3 minutes. Now, when you're mixing up an amount like this, you really don't need to mix for 3 minutes. I'm only going to mix this for about 30 seconds, and that will be plenty. Scraping off the sides like that, scraping the bottom. It's quite thick, so you're going to see quite a lot of bubbles in it, but you don't need to worry at this stage about the bubbles because that's why we're brushing it on. So that is mixed in real time, and that is mixed enough, I can assure you. So now you need to get your silicone brush. Now this is a different type of silicone in here, so it isn't going to be a problem getting this off. And now you need to brush this on quite firmly, because this is where you're pushing that silicone into the mold and into all these details, but also you're stopping any of those bubbles that you could see in that mold from distorting the actual piece as well. So go with the details. There we go. That's your first coat on. I'm going to do the same for this. I'm going to push it into all the areas using this silicone brush, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to clean this silicone brush at the end. Now, if you want to speed this up, curing, you can, once you're confident that you've got your brush marks on there. And you can do that by just going over it like this with a warm hairdryer. And that will speed that up. Now, don't try and clean this brush out now. Leave this in your pot like that and let it cure. 10 minutes. I promise you, this is the way to go and the easiest way to clean out this brush. So this is going to take about 10 minutes now for these to cure up and be ready for me to put on my next coat. So far, we've done everything here to ensure we get a good mold. Don't be tempted for your first coat to put it on with a spatula. You are not going to get into all those nooks and crannies. You're not going to brush out those bubbles, and you're not going to get as good a mold and all the details that you're looking for. So always use this. So that's nice and cured now, because I did that using the hairdryer. And now all you have to do is, once it's cured, is pull out this dried silicone. This is why it's so important to wait for it to cure rather than try and do it when it's not cured. And you'll find this will come out beautiful and clean. They just slide out. You can even pull them out like I'm doing now out of your silicone, because it is a very different silicone this brush is made from than the silicone you're using. So again, I'm doing this in real time to show you there's no jiggery pokery or conning or anything. And you get these brushes in the actual box when you buy the silicone, so you don't have to worry. I got two with mine. Whether it's normal to come with two or whether I was just lucky, who knows. I want to say a massive thank you to my members who let me know that there were some videos on the internet, unfortunately, that weren't having success with this. And they're great YouTubers as well, so I've got nothing against the YouTubers. Unfortunately, they weren't having some success with this because they weren't brushing it on, and they were curing it on something other than acetate, and as a result, that is not going to work well. Look at that brush. Not a single bit of silicone on there. All that silicone has come off. And now this pot, I should just be able to roll my finger down, pull out any spare silicone I've got in there, and now I can go and use that again. So I'm going to mix up some more and then do my second coat, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So that's nice and cured now, and what I'm going to do is brush on again my second layer, but I'm not being quite as careful with this layer. What I'm doing is I'm just making sure I get a really lovely coat all the way over, and then any that's skimmed off and gone under, flowed over, I'm just going to pop that back over here, so I'm not wasting it really. And these make amazing one-part molds. Now, I saw some comments on some of the videos that my members asked me to watch saying, oh, couldn't you just dip it in the silicone and things like that? I really wouldn't advise that. I wouldn't advise you taking your blank and dipping it in the silicone, because you're not going to get as good a finish, and you're also not going to get the details that you want. You need to follow this simple method. This is the correct method to do it. And this is the way that you'll get the absolute best results from this product. So now I'm just going to brush that out a little bit. Again, I'm going to let this dry, give it a clean up, and then I can do my final coat. So this time is my final coat. I've cleaned my brush again. Again, very easy to do. So I'm going to put a little bit more on this time, but I'm not going to apply it using the brush. I'm going to show you how I'm going to apply my last coat. Because I've mixed up a little bit more, I'm actually going to be mixing this for about 45 seconds to a minute, which will be plenty. Again, making sure I scrape the sides, the stick, and the bottom as I go around mixing. Because I actually do want this coat to be slightly thicker before I put it on. Now, it's really warm in my studio today, and if you've got a really warm studio, as we know, silicone and resin and paint and all that sort of thing will dry or cure quicker than if it's not really warm. Now, I can start to see that that is slightly thickening up. Now, we don't have to worry about the bubbles this time because it's not going to be touching the item we want to mold. What it is going to be doing is just sitting on top of the silicone that's already there. So I'm going to pop some in the middle of each one of these now. And again, like I said, this is where I want a thicker coat, and go around on this like that. And again, I'm using a spatula here, not the actual brush. And as that comes off there, I'm just going to scoop that up and let it find its own way. I am pushing it down onto that silicone because I want to make sure it adheres really, really well. Also, a big thank you to everyone that got me a coffee last month. Every penny that I get from coffees goes back into this channel. So if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for any of my videos and help support this channel, the link for that is in the description below, and you get your name on my coffee board. So as you can see, I'm just going round and scooping up some of this resin that is slid off. And once it starts to thicken up, you'll find that will stay put where you want it, and it's starting to gel now and thicken up. While that's curing up, I'm going to do the other two that have been sprayed with gloss varnish that are going to give me a lovely glossy finish. I am going to clear up my piece of acetate first though. These are all cured now and ready to be taken off here. They'll come off really quite easily. Don't forget they have got the double-sided tape on that stayed on there. I will remove that and then with a bit of alcohol or something so I can keep using this acetate, because this acetate will last me a long time. So that's it, they're all off there. Now all I need to do is get a pair of scissors, and what I'm going to do is just give these a trim. I'm giving them a trim while the thing's still in there. It just makes it easier really to hold it while it's in there. I just don't need these little feathery bits going around the edge. And now I can take out my pieces. And look at that. You can already see in there how much detail there is. And this hasn't taken long at all. If you're doing just a single mold, a single item, you probably could do the whole mold in about 20-30 minutes, especially if you're blasting it with a hairdryer as you're going. Now let's have a look at the dragon. Look how lovely and flexible it is as well. Yeah, and look, all that detail has come out in that dragon, and I'm going to cast in these in a minute anyway, and you'll be able to see that the detail is in there and there's no bubbles because we've brushed it on. I mean, it's called brush on, so it kind of gives it away. Oh, that one's come out really well. And they're the matte ones. And these are the ones that are going to be more glossy. Yeah, and you can see the difference. Look at the difference in the mold. That's the glossy one. That's the non-glossy one. The spraying, it makes a massive difference. So when we cast in that now, we're going to get a glossy finish to it. There we go. And that's the other matte one. We've got the two glossy ones, and then we've got the two matte ones. Big difference in them. So for this, I'm going to be using the J-Diction Crystal Clear resin. It's great resin. It'll cure up beautifully in these. I've popped these in pots like this to support them because I want to make sure they lay quite flat, because these ones with like the rounded backs aren't going to lay as flat as I would want them to. So what I'm going to do is get my PPE on, and then I can start mixing my resin. I'm ready now to pour my resin in. I'm going to pour it in nice and slow. I don't want to add any bubbles to this. I will give it a little bit of squidgy widgy. I've added some white mica powder and some white paste in this as well, so we can see the details once it's cured. Pour in slowly because we don't want to get any trapped bubbles in there and then think that the trapped bubbles are imperfections in the mold. Now for the dragon, I'm going to put a little bit in first and then pull it out and do some squidgy widgy. So many fine details on this. There we go. And now fill that up. Now leave those for 5 minutes, and then as normal I will go over them with a long neck lighter, never a torch, and burst any bubbles that have come up to the top. And we'll leave them to cure overnight. Well, these are all lovely and cured now and ready to be demolded. So let's take a look. And they demold really easy. It's a lovely and flexible silicone. And this is one of the shiny ones, as you can see. It's got a really nice glossy shine on it. And that mold is ready to use again. And it has pulled out all the detail and there's not a single bubble or anything on that. And that's because we brushed it on. Again, look at all the details in that. Excellent detail in there. Really pleased with how that's come out. And you can definitely see the difference between the matte and the glossy. And again, this one's got some great detail on it. All them ridges can be seen. And here's the other matte one. And those details, even the little flaw has come out there that was in the original blank. So let's have a look at the dragon. There's the dragon. Even the little swirls are coming out here. You can see all the scales, all that detail. No flaws whatsoever and no bubbles whatsoever either. So as long as you use it properly, as it's designed to be used, you will get some absolutely superb molds from it. Honestly, you will. It is so easy. It's so quick to use. And like I showed in the other video, you can make large molds with it, like these. I mean, that's quite a large mold, lovely and detailed. Medium-sized molds, or these size molds as well, glossy or shiny. Well, I hope that's laid any concerns you had to rest, and I hope anybody now watching this video will know exactly how to use this brilliant silicone. Check out the video where I made this one, this large mold. I think you'll really enjoy that one. Boot the like button, hit the subscribe button, but most of all, enjoy your resin. Take care. Bye.